You're listening to the Kelly Green Hour for the Always Next Year Podcast Studio Network. You can find the team on our Twitter at ANY Podcast or visit us on our website, www.alwaysnextyearpodcast.com. And now, to bring us in, the Jackdaws.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such jiggle over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky soul still have me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Kelly Green Hour here on the Always Next Year podcast, as we are headed into week 4 of the NFL season, as kicking it off will be the Philadelphia Eagles and the Green Bay Packers at historic Lambeau Field in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I'm your host, LJ Harrell, and joining me today, as always, is Connor. Connor, I know you're busy up there up north, but how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Like you said, just busy. It's like work, mortgage, moving, work, mortgage, move. It feels like it just doesn't stop. But next week, fingers crossed, October 1st, everything passes through and I get my house and I get some sense of normalcy back to my life.
well, we all wish you a good luck with that. We know that everything will turn out fine for you. So, after our non-victory hour that we did the other night, you feeling any better about the Eagles today?
Kind of, actually. To be honest, hearing Alshon Jeffrey back, Camus Grugier-Hill coming back. I'm starting to Dallas Goedert healthier, although I don't think health was a concern on that catch. Yeah. I think that was just a straight up bad play. But I'm feeling a bit better. But I mean, the more you dig in to Green Bay and Green Bay at Lambeau and Green Bay on Thursday nights, the more you sit there and say, this might not go so well.
And usually when the Philadelphia Eagles are being doubted and are going to a place that they're facing a team that they have no right beating, that's usually when they actually win a game and we're left figuring out how the heck that happened. So I wouldn't be surprised if they won. Obviously, we'll give our picks later. But it's definitely going to be a tough test. Now, let's talk about
that's the only thing. Thursday nights are so unpredictable. So that's the only thing that I'm sitting there and I'm like, that's giving me confidence when I look at these stats to say, but it is a Thursday night. We want to get rid of Thursday nights. They're unpredictable. No one knows what to expect. So that's the only thing keeping me, with some sort of confidence.
That's true. So let's talk about the Green Bay Packers. We all know that it starts with Aaron Rodgers, the very, very good quarterback out of Cal. Their new head coach, Matt LaFleur, who used to be the offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans. When he got hired and they were going through camp, there was this talk of a little friction between LaFleur and Rodgers because Rodgers had the same offense for his entire career up until LaFleur took over. They're 3-0, and they're not putting up gaudy numbers, but they're putting up just enough numbers to win. Like they start off the games really well, and then the defense plays out of their mind for 2.5 to 3 quarters, and they hold on to victories in the end. I mean, that's kind of what we got to expect on Thursday night, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely, the offense is underwhelmed. The defense started underwhelmingly on Thursday, the first Thursday of the season, but they definitely started to come around more and more. And definitely the defense has carried them. So, I'm interested to see what happens here because we're all expecting it. When is the big offensive breakout game happening? We know it's happening. It's Aaron Rodgers. It's Davante Adams. Something's going to give here. And we just pray at this point that we're not the ones that it's going to happen against. But their offense is putrid. I mean, you look at it through the first 3 weeks and they're where they stand in the league. 28th total, 27th pass, 24th rush. Like this screams a massive potential bounce back game for the Eagles, especially with the way that our defense has looked. So, I mean, this could be a really good thing, or it could end up being that breakout game that we've been waiting for from Aaron Rodgers. Not what we've been waiting for, but what Green Bay fans have been waiting for.
Yeah, very true. I mean, you mentioned Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams. They have Jamal Williams, Aaron Jones. They have Jimmy Graham, Scanling Val. I forget how.
Vaunted Scanling.
Thank you. I always mix that up. Like they have offensive weapons, and the one thing that the Eagles defense struggles with, because they play so far off on the corner, is quarterbacks that get rid of the ball fast. Matt Stafford did it to him last week. Matt Ryan did it to him the week before. Aaron Rodgers can diagnose a defense better than almost anybody outside of Tom Brady. So if Jim Schwartz is going to try to bring blitzes, or if he's going to try to disguise blitzes, if he's going to try to do something new, Aaron Rodgers will figure it out and he'll take advantage of that. So I don't know how, the Eagles are going to do it, but they got to have to find a way to slow down Aaron Rodgers. It's like when you talk about Michael Jordan, you're not going to stop him. You only can hope to contain him. That's pretty much what we're going to have to do with Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers doesn't shoot himself in the foot most times. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see the LaFleur versus Schwartz matchup, because we know the ability, and you mentioned it. The Packers have not had a breakout game yet, and they're still 3-0. So it could come this week. It could come against Dallas in 2 weeks. Who knows? But we are expecting the Packers to step it up sooner or later. And as you mentioned, hopefully it's not this week, because we are a team that's hurting right now. Listening to the airwaves here in Philly, everybody's complaining. We're 1-2. Nobody thought we were going to be 1-2. As we mentioned the other night, the expectations were high for this team coming into the season. They have severely underperformed, and things are not looking good, because 4 of the next 7 games are against undefeated teams: the Packers, the Bills, the Cowboys, and the Patriots. Like, while after the Patriots, the schedule gets a lot easier, there's still Minnesota that you have to travel to. And this is not an easy schedule coming up. And if the Eagles have aspirations of winning this division and maybe getting a top 2 seed, which obviously it's still very early in the season, so it's still possible, they have to win games that they're not supposed to win. And this is one of them.
Mm-hmm. No, agreed. At this point, no, the schedule doesn't get any easier over the next 7 games, like you said, but we need to find a way to pull out a couple of those games. We need to win the 3 surrounding games that aren't against undefeated teams, and we have to find a way to get at least 1 or 2 from those undefeated teams coming up. And one of the best ways to do it is definitely on a Thursday night, where you get the unexpected, you get some of the best games of the year, some of the worst games of the year. And but that Green Bay defense is super good right now, and I was really high on them, and I think they only will get better. They started off slow that first Thursday night, but I think they're only going to get better. And that offense is scary, because you just don't know when it's going to blow up, and you just don't know when they're going to get everything clicking. And once everything gets clicking there, I had this Green Bay Packers team going 14-2, and they're currently, I wouldn't say well on their way, but they're definitely headed in the right direction towards being 14-2. And if that offense can get things clicking, this team is dangerous, and this is not – we needed that Lions game. More than ever did we need that Lions game. Maybe the expectations were blown out of proportion, but at the same time, that Falcons game and that Lions game were just plagued by miscues and just really poor offensive play, not from the Carson Wentz standpoint, but just from the team standpoint in general. Mistakes, fumbles, drops. Those killed us, and we needed those 2 games. Like they say, good teams find a way to win those games, and we did it last year. We've done it in prior years, but we are just not finding that way this year, and we got to get back to it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people have been talking about how the Eagles are 2 drop passes away from being 3-0. Well, they're also a drop pass away from being 0-3, because Terry McLaurin got past the defense in week 1 after the Eagles got it I think either just took the lead or got within a field goal or got within 3 points to a touchdown. and McLaurin was wide open. And if he catches that, things could have changed week one. The Eagles were down 17-0 at that point. So you can't go off speculation. The game's already happened, and, people need to realize that this team is not as good as we thought they would be at this point in time. But that's also because they're not healthy.
Oh, definitely. The health is a major concern, and it will continue to remain a major concern, especially on that defensive front with Malik Jackson out for the year and Timmy Jernigan out for another probably 5 to 7 weeks. Those are the things that hurt the most, I think, on that defensive line, because Fletcher Cox was really relying on having a really strong power rusher beside him to help alleviate some of the pressure. But I mean, from a more positive note, I actually did see something on Twitter today. It's not all the failure for the pass rushers, because I guess according to ESPN Analytics, the Eagles rank as the third best NFL team in pass rush win rate, which is how often a pass rusher is able to beat his block within 2.5 seconds. So
we have two sacks.
But I'm just saying, Brandon Graham and Derek Barnett both are in the top 10 edge rushers for win rate. So we're getting the pressure, and we're beating the block within 3 seconds. But I mean, look at the people we faced. Like, Matt Stafford got that ball off quick. He's been getting that ball out quick. He knows he doesn't have a good offensive line. And now we're up against Aaron Rodgers. It definitely doesn't get any easier, but having that pressure on the inside would definitely help big time. If you see Brandon Graham and Derek Barnett at the top of the league and beat in the block within 2.5 seconds, imagine what they could do if Malik Jackson or Timmy Jernigan was on the inside.
Also, when it comes to Fletcher Cox, I really don't think he's healthy. We need to. I think after the game Thursday, it's the 10 days off is going to be crucial. The Eagles need to get healthy. Like, that's key point number one. Put it in bold, underline the headline. Eagles need to get healthy. Once they have a fully healthy roster, once Deshaun's back and Alshon's 100% and Goddard's good, and you get Fletcher Cox healthy, things I think will turn around, because obviously, we expected the depth on this team to be prominent, and it's not. We overrated the depth of this team. I think it's safe to say. A lot of people overrated the defensive ends. I was worried about them. Reason why I wanted Jadeveon Clowney. Now, am I wrong of wanting him? No, because the Eagles' defensive ends have as many sacks as me and you combined. That's not good.
No, it definitely isn't. And I mean, I was one against the Jadeveon Clowney move, but at the same time, I mean, tough to say what could have happened if we got him. But now we're seeing what happens when we didn't get him.
Michael Bennett had 2 sacks on Sunday for the Patriots against the Jets. Like, we are really, really missing those 2 outside guys that didn't come back in Bennett and Chris Long. Like, yeah,
he built how he built a team around being strong and fighting and being competitive in the trenches. And I feel like he kind of let what he saw on paper dictate what he was doing. And he said, I don't need Bennett. I don't need Long. We can let him go into retirement. We don't need these pieces. And at the end of the day, we did need those pieces. That's what made us so deep, and that's what made us so competitive along that defensive line.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Packers offense. As we mentioned at the outset of the show, it starts with Aaron Rodgers. What other, outside of Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, what are 1 or 2, pieces or guys that could have an impact on this game that the Eagles need to either stop, find a way to penetrate, to come away with a victory?
Definitely watching Valdez-Scanlon, because he's clearly proven to be a pretty effective target for Aaron Rodgers. And I mean, if Devontae Adams is covered, he is a really good second option. I'm not very high on Aaron Jones. I'm not very high on the rush of the Green Bay Packers, but I do like Jamal Williams. I think there's something there. He brings a little more to the game. He did end up taking 63% of snaps versus Jones 37% this past Sunday. So that definitely is intriguing because he also brings something to the pass game as well as the rushing game. So those are two that I would be watching largely. And obviously our defensive line versus their offensive line, because Aaron Rodgers has his protection rate ranks 24th among quarterbacks. So he does not have a great line in front of him protecting him. So I think, and we know we've talked about our defensive line, the struggles of defensive line. I said some of the stats that stand out as real big positives for this defensive line. And once again, I gotta say, we gotta turn QB hits and pressures into sacks and true pressure on Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I agree. I know you said you don't like their running game, but a lot of and I mentioned it the other day, a lot of teams don't run on us because why would you? We only give up like 57 yards rushing a game, but that's because teams are throwing for over 300 yards against us. A couple key guys on the Packers offense. David Bakhtiari is their left tackle. He's going to be going up against Brandon Graham most of the time, I believe. Yeah, I think it'll be Brandon Graham most of the time. It's going to be important for Brandon Graham to win that battle. You mentioned it, like, as much as I think it's a BS stat, Graham and Barnett are in the top 10 and winning percentage, whatever that is. I think it's a BS stat. I ain't gonna lie, especially if you're not getting to the quarterback. But if you can win, you have to get to Aaron Rodgers quick because he will get rid of the football. And then Jimmy Graham, because even though he's a little bit older, he still can cause matchup nightmares for the Eagles. And the Eagles are short a corner. Yes, they brought up Craig James from the practice squad, but Ronald Darby's not going to play. They might be better off without him because Rasul Douglas and Sidney Jones and Avonte Maddox, I think, are better on the field. Can Andrew Sendejo cover Jimmy Graham? We've seen he's already had struggles this year covering tight ends. You can't set up a defensive scheme where a linebacker is covering Danny Amendola like on Sunday when Zach Brown was asked. It was either a blown assignment by a corner or it was the scheme that was run on that specific play when Amendola had a big catch. I think it was on third down. But why was Zach Brown supposed to cover Amendola? That should never happen. So Jim Schwartz has to get better with his schemes because Jimmy Graham will take advantage. We know he's that basketball player type. You throw it up to him in the end zone, he'll go for it, and most times come down with it.
The good thing is he's been struggling as of late, so could be a positive for us to take advantage of the fact that Jimmy Graham hasn't started to click in this Green Bay Packers offense. But like we said, the offense isn't really clicking in a general point. So all we're waiting for is that one breakout game, and I think they all break out together.
Who on the Packers defense is somebody that one or two names that you're looking at that could cause issues for the Eagles offense?
Oh man, who isn't someone to worry about? I mean, they do have the 5th ranked pass defense in the league, so I mean they're young, they're fast. I think it's in a general sense it's like they have a really bad rush defense, so they're 25th versus the rush versus 5th against the pass. So I mean, you definitely got to look to take advantage of that. Take advantage of the fact that the line is not as strong, but they have some really great cornerbacks, Jair Alexander, among others. So, I mean, I'd be looking to really get that rush game going and to get Jordan Howard going. I mean, we've been crying for more Jordan Howard. He almost had a 50-50 split with Sanders. And after Sanders' couple of fumbles and issues with ball protection, I think hopefully more than ever they'll lean towards Howard in more than 50%, and we take advantage of the fact that their pass rush or that their defense against the rush is not that great, and hopefully we can take advantage of that. But as far as the rest of the defense goes, I mean, it's important that we have Alshon Jeffrey back with this type of pass defense coming into play, because it could get ugly. It could have been very ugly without an Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson again against this type of pass defense.
Yeah, and we've already seen the Eagles' other receivers, Arcega Whiteside and Mac Hollins did all right, but we saw that they struggled, and we saw what happened with Zach Ertz. He got double teamed, and nobody else was able to help. So it's going to be very key. And I hope that Alshon coming back, that he's not going to be like, Goddard was up and ready and able to play on Sunday, but he only played 9 snaps and they were all in the second half. I don't want that. If Alshon's going to play, we need Alshon to play. So some guys that I'm looking at, they had brought in Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith from the Ravens and the Redskins, respectively. They're 2 outside rushers at the linebacker position. It's going to be important for Lane Johnson and Jason Peters to be on their horse. These 2 guys get after the quarterback. They're no joke. So it's going to be very important for our tackles, Johnson and Peters, to find a way to protect it's going to be important for the entire offensive line, but especially the tackles. If they have to be able to read stunts, because Mike Pettin, who coached high school ball out here in our neck of the woods here in PA at North Penn High School, he's the defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers, and he could come up with very creative schemes. He has schemes. He has players now. I mentioned the Smith guys, Blake Martinez, inside backer. Jair Alexander might be one of the best corners in football, and he's in his 2nd or 3rd year. They brought in Adrian Amos from the Bears. Darnell Savage was somebody that they drafted from Maryland. He is really good. He's a rookie this year. He is really good. And Kevin King, who went to UW with Sidney Jones. Like, this is a really young, really fast, very physical defense that will probably cause some trouble for the Eagles on Thursday night.
Absolutely. I mean, it goes without saying, they're young, they're fast, so you're going to have to be watching all over the field. The running backs, if they're blocking for Wentz, cannot miss their block. Our offensive line cannot, like that video going around, they cannot give up on any play, because even if you knock someone down, they will get back up and they will make that play happen. They're young, they're fast, they're more or less the opposite of our current defensive situation, where we seem to be getting older and slower, and others are getting younger and faster. So, I mean, it is definitely going to be dangerous, and that offensive line has to start looking like the offensive line that we bragged about and that Pro Football Focus ranked as like the top offensive line. They need to start looking like it, and this is going to be a huge game that they have to make happen.
Yeah, they're put in a tough spot because it is such a short week. You're going on the road to Lambeau Field against an undefeated team, which, honestly, the Packers are undefeated, but they haven't looked that great. But the Eagles can't afford to overlook anybody, because they overlook anybody, just like who knows, did they overlook the Lions? It's quite possible. But if they go in there thinking that like they're just going to walk in and get a win, they're going to get blown out. Last time they went to Green Bay, they gave up like 52 points, something like that. That can't happen. They really, and I know it was a different coaching, I think that was under Chip Kelly, but still, they have to come out playing there. But they cannot go down 2 scores to this Green Bay team. If they do, it's over. They have to start fast.
Oh, I mean, we preach it every week how fast that they have to start, and it rings very true with the Packers. I said it about the Lions. They're a fast team when they get going. You don't want, even if you get ahead by 1 or 2 scores, you want to get ahead by 3 or 4, because the Lions had all those fourth quarter comebacks. They play really well in the second half. Well, the Green Bay Packers play really well for an entire game of football. So like you said, all it takes is falling behind by 10 or falling behind by 14, and suddenly, well, things could turn really nasty. And I don't think this is one of those teams that we can, like the Redskins, who you can fall behind and, we'll come back. It's just the Redskins. No, this is a Green Bay Packers. They haven't lost at Lambeau in September in their last 15 tries. Like, this is a team that home field advantage. It's like the link for us. Easily, Lambeau is probably more important to Green Bay than the link is to us as the Eagles. So, I mean, especially this early in the season where they're 3-0 and they could easily flip around and be 0-3 too. I mean, they're finding ways to win the games. and their defense is keeping them in it, and their offense is capitalizing when they're given the opportunity. All the opposite to what we're doing.
Yeah, we say it time and time again. Start fast. All right, so let's go to the keys to the game. We kind of touched on it a little bit already, but kind of expand on it if you have any further ones. What are a couple of keys that you have that the Eagles need to do in order to come away with the victory Thursday night?
Oh, we just alluded to it. Start fast and definitely do not let up. Do not take your foot off the gas. More than ever this week against Green Bay, you cannot take your foot off the gas. It's important for another key is our offensive line to be that number one, that top 5 offensive line that teams talked about, or that Pro Football Focus and other rating systems ranked us. We need to be that offensive line. You can't give up on any play. Start early, start often, and don't give up on any play. If you notice, if a wide receiver's out there noticing something, come back to the play. Make something happen. We saw time and time again where some receivers should have come back to the play, should have helped Carson Wentz. So I think another super important thing is Carson Wentz and his weapons. We're currently averaging around 3 drops per game. Those have to stop. The drops, the fumbles, the miscues, the mishaps, they have to stop. And obviously we're not asking for a perfect game because, well, that doesn't happen. We're Philly fans. We're logical when we think about that. It just doesn't happen. But we need a good game. 1 drop, so be it. But averaging 3 drops, losing fumbles, fumbling the ball, it just cannot happen. We know that this defense is good. We know they're fast. We know they're aggressive. They play hard. So we have to play just as hard on offense back at them. So those are my big keys. The biggest key, I think, is Carson Wentz and his position players, his weapons, really being the weapons that we thought they could be and thought they would be.
You know, one thing about, before I go to mine, Carson Wentz kept his receivers after practice for like 20 to 30 minutes today, going over routes and, you know, just talking things over, changing things. I think that's a great sign of a leader. Yes, they struggled on Sunday. You know, he didn't allow it to bring them down. He had his receivers stay after practice. They discussed what happened and they moved past it, and hopefully it builds on for this game coming up against the Packers. So my keys to the game. First, coaching. On that 43-yard end around run that the Lions had on Sunday, there were only 10 guys on the field for the Eagles. They were missing their right defensive end. That can't happen. Everybody needs to be on the same page. If you're supposed to be on the field with a certain alignment, with a certain personnel, be on the field. Not having that defensive end out there allowed the Lions to get to execute on that end around, that 44-yard reverse. You know, that was a key play of the game because it was right after a Miles Sanders fumble, and B, the Lions scored they scored a touchdown after that. The Eagles can't allow that to happen. Also, defensively, if the Eagles score a touchdown, let's not allow the opposing offense to go down the field and score a touchdown right away. It happened twice on Sunday. Well, one was on the special teams. The Eagles scored a touchdown, kicked the field goal right away. The Lions, 101 yards for a touchdown. Later on in the game, the Eagles scored a touchdown. I think it was on the Miles Sanders run. And then the Lions went down the field and scored a touchdown. That can't happen. We need some 3 and outs. It's always talked about in baseball, you know, where you have that shutdown inning. We need a shutdown drive or 2 by the Eagles defense. That can help this offense and get the team some motivation, get the team going. And then also for Doug, when it comes to the offensive side of the ball, his opening 15 plays need to be better. We talked about last year how he was missing Frank Reich and DeFilippo, but Frank Reich mostly. On Sunday, Jacoby Brissett completed his first 15 passes, I think. I'll say that again. Against the Atlanta Falcons, Jacoby Brissett completed his first 15 passes. Frank Reich is a really good play caller. I really do think, to an extent, Doug Peterson misses him in terms of game planning. Yeah, we know Doug Peterson calls the plays and called the plays back in 2017 when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, but he had that mind of Frank Reich to help him put the game plan together. What does Mike Groh do? I don't have faith in Mike Groh. So Doug needs to find a way to get back to that. And hopefully he kept in his, in the bottom cabinet of his desk drawer, something from 2017. He needs it because the Eagles need to get off to a fast start on Thursday night against the Packers. And my other key, this has to be a Carson Wentz game. I hate putting it all on Carson Wentz. And Carson Wentz is not the reason why the Eagles are 1-2. We know this to be a fact. I don't care what anybody says. But there comes a time when the leader of the team, the guy that when he signed his contract was given the most money ever given the most money ever to a quarterback, it comes a time when he needs to be the guy to win a game. And what's the big win for Carson Wentz on the road? Dallas back in 2017, even though that Dallas team wasn't all that good. He would have won that Rams game most likely before he tore his ACL. Like the Carolina game back in 2017 is probably the most defining win on the road for Carson Wentz. He needs that this week. This has to be a Carson Wentz game.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Carson Wentz really has to step up. He has to make his weapons make plays. I know that's clearly difficult and it's proven difficult, but he needs to make sure he keeps his guys' heads in the game through the whole game, just kind of like you alluded to with the practice and keeping them after. He's got to do that during the game. If there's one play that goes wrong or there's a couple series that start awry, he has to step up. He has to be that leader and he has to get their heads back in the game. And I think this needs to be a Carson Wentz game more from not just from a statistical standpoint, but from a leader standpoint and from being a leader for this team. He can't rely on Doug Peterson to say, what are you doing, Aguilar? He has to go in there and he has to say, Aguilar, you got to hold on to that ball. We got to figure out a way to get you open. We got to do whatever it takes. It's a game where it's a Carson Wentz game from a leadership perspective, and it's a Carson Wentz game from a statistical standpoint.
His statistics have not been bad. His statistics so far this year are better than where they were at this point in 2017. So, that's why I'm saying it's not on Carson. We talked about the 7 drops on Sunday. Carson was 19 of 36. Say that the receivers caught 5 of them. That puts him at 24 of 36, which is a 67% completion percentage. He finished with 260 some odd yards, or 250 to 260. Five additional catches. That puts you over 300 yards and possibly another touchdown or two. He is not the reason, and I'll continue to say this until he actually is he is not the reason why this team is faltering.
No.
Nope. The pieces around him, A, are getting hurt, and B, aren't helping him out. The quarterback obviously gets all the praise when they win and gets all the blame when teams lose, but he still needs help. He can't do it all himself.
No, definitely not. And this is why he needs to be that guy who kept his receivers and held them accountable after practice, but he needs to do it during the game. And this needs to be the game that we win, because coming out of this game 2-2 would be huge for us and for this season. Coming out of this game 1-3 could also be huge, but for all the negative reasons.
I definitely agree. All right. So before we get to the Vaunted Picks segment, your biggest take or overreaction, I should say, from week 3 in the National Football League.
So Oakland Raiders fans starting to lose their mind and say Derek Carr has got to go, or that Derek Carr's time in Oakland is up. That is one of the biggest overreactions I've seen on Twitter. And why? His 2 number 1 targets, Darren Waller, who had no more than 10 catches in his 2 prior years before this, and Terrell Williams, who played behind Keenan Allen and Mike Williams in LA. He doesn't have a number 1 receiver. He doesn't have a number 1 receiving option. He has Josh Jacobs as his running back. They finally gave him a potentially true number 1 running back. But what does he really have to play with? I mean, me and a buddy talked about it once. This was probably a couple years back after Derek Carr had that big almost MVP season. He went down with his back issue, and then right after Carson Wentz had his near MVP season, went down with his torn ACL. I honestly still do believe Carr and Wentz are like really kind of like future big quarterbacks in the NFL. I still believe Derek Carr can be like that, like up there with like 5 years down the road, Brady, Breeze. You know how we talk Brady, we talk Breeze, we talk Roethlisberger. It'll be like Wentz, Carr, Mahomes, among others. I mean, there's so many great quarterbacks coming up, but I still believe Derek Carr is being disrespected and in Oakland, and people thinking that it's time to move on. That is crazy. Look at the weapons he has. I would like to see the majority of quarterbacks work with what he has to work with in that offense.
Yeah, I agree. Now, I don't think Derek Carr is the quarterback that John Gruden really wants, though. That's a whole nother ball game. I mean, these people are just reacting to his play. But if this is like John Gruden doesn't like him, John Gruden wants to move on, well, then this is a whole different can of worms to open up for that team. Because I mean, at this point, if John Gruden's there and he's 2 years deep, unsuccessful on a 10-year contract and still looking for that franchise quarterback, this could be a dangerous $100 million coach right here. Let's be real. He's the face of that franchise. He can do whatever he wants to do.
Oh, absolutely.
They're going to Vegas next year. They don't care. He can do whatever he wants to do. All right. So my take, I've been pondering this. I've had a couple in my head. I'll go with this. Dalvin Cook's going to lead the league in rushing. Yeah, I know he leads the league right now, but
wow.
Dalvin Cook is really good, and he's finally healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that Mike Zimmer wants to run the football. That's why he fired John DeFilippo last year. And we know that's what they wanted. They threw the ball 10 times against Atlanta week 1. Like, they are a running team, which I'm interested in see when we go to Minnesota in a couple weeks, how that's going to happen, because the Eagles have a really good run defense. Mm-hmm. So I'm really interested in that mind game. We'll talk about that when we get to that game in a couple weeks. But yeah, I think Dalvin Cook's going to lead the league in rushing. And I think he's going to do it comfortably. He is that good, and he looks healthy. He looks fast. He looks spry. And we can see it whenever he hits the hole. He one cut and go, which I want Miles Sanders to do instead of dancing. But but yeah, Dalvin Cook, he's going to lead the league in rushing. I have he is on my fantasy team too, so that could be hoping that he gets me some more points and everything. But,
wishful thinking, but I mean, I invested in him a ton in a lot of redraft leagues. I think I have him in 3 or 4 leagues. That man is a fantasy league winning running back. I would not be surprised, because I mean, Zeke's not scoring at the pace that he was, and Zeke needs to, like, you can go out there and get 120 yards every game, but if you ain't scoring, you ain't worth a whole ton from the fantasy perspective. I mean, you're sitting there and you're putting up 15, 16 points a week. Good for you. But Dalvin Cook is putting up like 20 to 30 points a week, because on top of the 100 yards, he's putting on the touchdowns. And
he catches the ball at the backfield too.
Exactly. And Zeke just doesn't. He just likes to eat, and he's got to eat a lot more.
He has the ability to, but I don't know. The Cowboys have had such a cupcake schedule. They've played all D3 schools so far that they haven't had to open up that portion of the offense. So I'll be interested to see when they go up against, I mean, I don't even know if the Saints are going to be much, because they don't have Drew Brees, but their defense is still all right. But when they go up against the Saints, the Packers, they go up against us, like, they're going to have to open up different portions of that offense. So it'll be interesting to see how they get Zeke involved more as they open up the Kellen Moore offense.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
All right, so let's move over to the Vaunted Picks segment. I made a comeback. I'm tied with you now. We both have 11 points. Last week, we both took the Eagles. They lost. I took 2 upsets. I took the Steelers over San Fran, and while San Fran won 24-20, it was a 7-point spread, so I won that. And my other was Houston over the Chargers, and Houston won outright, so I was able to get 4 points for my 2 upset wins. You also had the upset with the Steelers over San Fran with the +7, so you got 2 points from that. You took the Bills to beat the Bengals. You were correct in the outcome, but it was a 6-point spread, and the Bills only won by 4. So you didn't get points from that, but good job picking the Bills to win. So we're tied up 11 points apiece. Let's go to week 4. What's your first pick, Connor?
I'm going with two underdogs this week. I'm going to try and snag some points, pull away a little bit. My first pick, Jags over the Broncos. The Broncos are favored by 3. How the hell are you going to favor an 0-3 Broncos being dragged by Joe Flacco? Like, come on, against that Jaguars defense, like that, especially that defensive line. I'm going with the Jags over the Broncos.
All right,
with that field goal.
Okay. I got one upset and one lock, so I'll go with my lock first. I'm taking the Ravens over the Browns. The Browns are who we thought they were, an overrated team. Yes, they have the names. They have the...
With the 7-point spread.
Yes.
You realize that spread.
7 points. I'm taking Lamar Jackson and the Ravens over the Browns plus or minus 7. I think the Ravens are a really good team. Oh, another one of my overreaction that I was going with was that the winner of that the Chiefs and Ravens game, which was the Chiefs, are going to face the Patriots in the AFC Championship game. But I think the Ravens have a chance to really spoil that because I think that they're going to grow with that offense. And I am a huge Lamar Jackson fan. Love Hollywood Brown. Mark Ingram looks good for them. That defense is fast, physical. And I don't think the Browns, you know, as we mentioned, they got names. They have all the fame, the glory, you know, but they're still the Browns. So I'm taking the Ravens minus 7 over Cleveland.
Well, my friend, I got the Browns. That is my second underdog.
Oh, really?
Pick. That 7-point spread, man. A divisional game. I like that Cleveland Browns defense. I like that defensive line. I think that they're going to apply some pressure. Mark Ingram is not having the type of game he had in weeks 1 or week 3. He's not going to bust out these massive runs and get 3 touchdowns or 2 touchdowns. And I think they're going to apply a lot of pressure to Lamar Jackson. They're going to start to make him uncomfortable, and they're going to start to make him move. And I don't think that they cover that 7-point spread. I don't know if they outright win. I just don't think that the Ravens win by 8 points.
Okay. My upset, I'm taking the Saints plus 3 over the Cowboys.
Ooh, I like it. I looked at that. I tossed that one up for a little while. I was like, man.
I know I just said that the Saints might not win the game, but in New Orleans, it's a revenge game after last year, and I know that it's Teddy Bridgewater, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a lot of Taysom Hill. Plus, the Saints just went to Seattle and won. Like, that's a really tough place to play. That's the first time that Seattle's lost a home September game under Pete Carroll. Like, that doesn't happen. So I'm taking the Saints plus 3 to win outright over the Cowboys.
Now the painful one.
Now, the Philadelphia Eagles and the Green Bay Packers on Thursday Night Football. Who you got, Connor?
Oh, my Lord.
Remember, the Eagles game isn't spread. This is just straight up pick a score, pick a winner.
Yeah, and even, man, it breaks my heart, but I think I got to go with the Packers, man. The stats are stacked against them. Literally every odd you could have stacked against you, the Eagles have stacked against them. Going to Lambeau in September, up against Aaron Rodgers, up against a strong, fast defense. It pains me, but I got to go Packers, man. I think the Eagles are starting 1-3, but we're going to come back a fresh team ready to go after these next 10 days off, and we're going to start pulling shit together.
Do you have a score?
I think this is going to be like your typical Thursday night, like defensive war kind of thing going on. I got 20-17.
2017 Packers, which, I mean, the Eagles cover because I think it's up to 5 now. All right, So you mentioned it, how everything is going against the Eagles. The Packers have never lost a Thursday night home game. It's a short week. Go to Lambeau against a 3-0 team. The Eagles are not flying high right now. Yeah, I'm picking the Packers to win. It's so tough.
You had me there.
I know.
But, I mean, it broke my heart, man. But I picked the Lions. I picked the Falcons. both of those games were games we should have won. We didn't win. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is another one of those games, and I'm going with my heart this time.
Are you trying to do the reverse psychology by picking the Packers, hoping the Eagles come out and prove us wrong?
Yeah, but you know what? I don't care about the picks. You know
That's
what?
true.
If I go and I play reverse psychology and they win the game, good.
Exactly.
Good.
I'm with you
Take
on
my
that.
points. Take my points.
I took the Packers 28-17. They'll get like a late score to get that spread. The Eagles haven't been blown out. They haven't been beaten bad. And I don't think that's going to happen Thursday night. But it's just a tough spot. And you're right. They'll get 10 days off. They'll get the Jets, who are coincidentally coming off of a bye, but Jets aren't any good. They'll probably have Sam Darnold. But still, the Eagles should be able to win that game. And then they have the three, thanks to the freaking Phillies, they have the 3 road games in a row after that, at Minnesota, at Dallas, and then at Buffalo. So it's very important. If they lose this, they have to beat the Jets. Because if you lose this game in 1-3 and you lose to the Jets, all hell's going to break loose in this town. Like, there's still a chance at 1-3 that they can make moves, that they can still make the playoffs as a wild card team. Maybe even a division winner, but that's going to be tough. But at 1-4, ooh-wee.
Yeah, I had them
a lot of
pegged
finger putting.
I had them pegged at 11-5, and if we get to 1-4, I really think I saw a couple predictions of us going 9-7, and I was like, man, y'all are crazy. And if we get to 1-4 and we lose to the Lions and the Jets as 2 of those losses, then I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, damn, 9-7 is a pretty realistic stretch right now. So
yeah, things have not been good, but hopefully Thursday night things go in our favor as the Philadelphia Eagles travel to Lambeau to face the Green Bay Packers. Well, let's pray. Whoever you pray to, start praying now. The Eagles need a victory. And I think as fans, I don't think we can handle 2 losses in a, 24, 40, 96-hour period, give or take a couple hours. I don't think we can handle that, and then having 10 days off to talk about it. So hopefully the Eagles come out flying high and win a game that nobody is picking them to win. Don't forget to rate and review us on wherever you're listening to us. You can reach us on Twitter at the Always Next Year Podcast, Twitter at ANY Podcast. Connor can be reached at Connor10. That's Connor TEN. I can be reached at LJ Harrell 54. For Connor, I'm LJ. Thank you for listening to the Kelly Green Hour here on the Always Next Year Podcast.
Fly, Eagles, fly.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with a win. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.